Welcome to the Moonscape update. David Åkesson first appeared with Moonscape on the Here With You single that was released sometime during the spring of 2020. But his first recording with the project was this album, Untitled Chapter 2, Echoes from a Cognitive Dystopia is the full title on that one. He played the erratic character, and I think he did a really good job on that one. I was looking for someone with a voice that had a bit of a higher range, and through a mutual contact of ours, I got in touch with David, and he turned out to be a great fit, I feel. He is probably best known for his tenure with the French symphonic power metal band Contis. I believe he only did one album with them, which I coincidentally have lying on my desk in front of me here. It's called The Anastoria. It's signed and autographed by David himself. And I think he only did this one album with them, if I'm not mistaken. He's not in the band anymore, unfortunately. Because I really feel that his voice and their sound were a great fit, but I guess he had to put his focus on other things. David is a vocal coach and a voice teacher, and he's doing online consulting. So if you're looking for someone to that might be able to help you explore your voice, or just help you become a better singer, then I'm pretty sure that David is a great alternative to guide you along. Drake Chrisdensen is another guy whose first appearance with Moonscape was on the Entity Chapter 2 album. He did the role of the Dreamer on that one, and his voice in particular is one that I really love hearing in a Moonscape context. He has a tenor voice, which I guess makes him a great fit with this kind of music that we're doing. And when I was writing the Rude Awakening song, when I made it to the pre-chorus part there, I really couldn't imagine anyone else singing those parts. So I know Drake's a busy guy, with his studies and his own band, Ruins of Elysium. And but I really wanted to ask him if he would like to at least consider doing another appearance, and thankfully he did. And even though I feel he sounds great on the previous album we did together, I find that he's sounding even better on this new one. Ken Mills is probably best known for his podcast work. He's doing podcasts about Kiss, Cheap Trick, and I believe the Monkees as well. And my introduction to Ken was through a mutual friend of ours, Mark Anthony Kay, who had Ken appearing on one of his Project Gemini albums, which I also coincidentally have lying in front of me on my desk here. Ken did a spoken word appearance towards the end of this album, which is called In the Year 3073 Book 2, which is part of a conceptual trilogy. Well worth checking out if you're into storytelling and progressive music in general. And when I heard Ken's voice, I felt it had the same kind of tone and the same sense of authority that Patrick Stewart has in his voice. So somewhere in my head there was a voice telling me that wouldn't it be cool to have someone sounding like Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek on a Moonscape record? And of course I was tempted. So I asked Mark if he would mind me potentially involving Ken on a Moonscape record. Because I had a slight concern that it would seem like I was trying to copy what he was doing with his Project Gemini stuff. Uh, but he didn't mind, so I reached out to Ken, and he ended up playing the Joseph Palmer character, which comes in about halfway into the Rude Awakening song. I believe the part is called Declaration Downfall. And to me, it's always been important to have different kinds of contrasts and textures in my music. And when Ken's voice comes in during that clean guitar part, halfway into the song, uh, his voice and his very presence on that song is the main reason why that particular part is one of my many favorite parts on the album. As I mentioned earlier, David Åkesson is a vocal coach, and when I asked him if he knew anyone who might be interested in doing some choir vocals on a new album, he sent me a list of several names of people for me to check out. And two of the very lovely ladies that ended up doing the choirs on the album were actually his students. And the first one to send me her recorded parts was Greta Hajduková, a lovely young lady from Slovakia who I believe hasn't done any recordings prior to her work on the Continuum Synergy. But she has a very clear, bright voice that I would love to hear on a future Moonscape record as well. Just like Greta, Nina Pohleven from Slovenia is another lovely lady who is also one of David Åkesson's students. But she's probably a bit more experienced as far as recording goes, I believe. She has her own project as well, a duo which is called Inflected, and they have an album out which is called The Abode of the Damned. It came out in late October of last year, if I'm not mistaken. And Nina is a master's degree music teacher. She's a conductor, obviously a singer, and she plays the saxophone, flute, piano, and guitar as well. So I might be tempted to ask her for another appearance on a later record as well. Stefani Keogh is a name that I had frequently seen on social media, even before David suggested her to me. She's from England, another lovely lady who, in my ears, might just have the most powerful voice on the entire album. And she's a photographer. She takes stunning pictures that you can see on her Instagram page. I'm gonna leave the link in the description below so you can check it out yourself. And just like David Åkesson, she's done some session vocals for different bands, but her main gig is being the lead singer of a Norwegian band called Nergard. I'm located in the southeastern part of Norway, but I believe they're located a bit further north than I am. The fourth lady in the choir on this album is a lovely lady from Chile. Uh, just like David Åkesson, Marcela Villarroel is a vocal coach. And her first appearance with Moonscape was on the Entity Chapter 2 album, on which she played the role as the angel, which comes in about halfway into the illusion or reality track. And no matter how brief her appearance on that album was, that part in particular never fails to leave a lump in my throat. So it was a given that I would absolutely love to have Marcella do another appearance on this album. Matt Brown played the role of the main protagonist on this album, Entity, and his character is just simply called Man on this one. That was before I started naming my characters. And I reached out to Matt after discovering his YouTube channel around 2016. And at some point, I wanted him to do all the vocals on that album. But then eventually, as I started further developing the concept, I felt that it would be better to have separate voices for all of them. So he ended up just doing the clean vocals on that one. And I've always felt bummed out by the fact that he didn't appear on the Chapter 2 album. But the characters were rather different on that one. So instead of just repeating the man characters, there were three separate voices portraying that character's personalities in a way. And there were some musical changes on that album as well. And at the time, I felt the music needed voices that were in a bit of a higher range than Matt's. So sadly, he ended up not appearing on that album. Uh, but after hearing Matt's own material during recent years, I felt that he could do a really good, aggressive, clean vocal. And so, of course, it was really fun to have him appear on this new album, The Continuum Synergy, where he does the part as Roderick Graham, the villain that eventually turns good. And Matt has his own project as well, Arcane. You can see, check out the links in the description below. Have a listen to his music. And he released his first album only a few months prior to Entity being released. And I believe he has another one coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. Jim Brunaud, my French buddy. It was a thrill having Matt Brown on another Moonscape record, but it was just as thrilling having Jim return for another one as well. Uh, Jim played the father character on the Entity record, but unfortunately he did not appear on the Chapter 2 one. His character did indeed reappear on that album, but those parts, at least the illusion or reality one, had a certain personal significance for myself, since it's mainly about the moment when my father passed away. So at that time, I felt the best way for me to get the right kind of emotion into that part was by doing the vocals myself. So I guess it's needless to say that I'm absolutely loving the fact that Jim is once again reappearing on a Moonscape album, playing the not too insignificant part of Nostradamus. And I really couldn't think of anyone better to play that role. I have many favorite moments on the album, and Jim's parts are all among those. That part when he comes in saying, "Only when in the presence of certain death uh, can the mind truly see and reach beyond the realm in which it lives and find eternity." That one is really a highlight for myself. Uh, he helped me out with some translational work this time as well. And so thank you very much, Jim, for all your help. His spoken word part on the Visionary's Fate song is another highlight of mine, combined with that guitar solo on there, which is played by Andreas Jonsson, whom I'll be talking about in a video later on. Um, and I have to admit that I'm getting goosebumps when I'm waiting for the very last verse on the album, where Jim is reciting the very last quatrain that Nostradamus wrote after having received his vision. And the emotion he puts into that part, at least in my ears, makes a damn good conclusion to the album.